I am currently battling with every person I date. Before I date them, I already in my mind think that it's not going to work out. Okay, so it's self-sabotage, like I'm not worthy. And all my friends always tell me, relax, it's fine, everything's good, you got the perfect guy this time. And as soon as I know it, that person's gone. And I have no reason why. And all of a sudden I'm attached. And I don't know how to stop the attachment of like, what did I do wrong? So this last relationship I had, I got completely out of the blue dumped. And there was no reason or rhyme for it. And I'm stuck. Completely like, what did I do? Why did this happen? And I don't know why I'm stuck in this situation of doing this in every single relationship.
So first, there's a whole lot of awareness of what has been happening going on.
Yeah.
And keeping it alive, keeping it active by talking about it.
Yeah.
But in the process of all of this exploration, you've been launching rockets of desire. So you've been defining and refining what you're really looking for in a relationship. Mm-hmm. So your relationship vortex is much more detailed, much more evolved than it was before all of that. So it hasn't been a waste of time. It's all been for something. And where in your previous understanding, or even in the understanding that you've been garnering from us, where did you pick up the notion that you should make happy out of situations that you don't like?
What do you mean?
We mean,
Sorry.
we mean, you got it? Yeah. We mean, what is it that makes you think that you should be looking right at something that isn't pleasing to you and pretend otherwise? Isn't it okay for you that when you go to a restaurant, do you just say to the waiter, bring me what you like? Or do you say to the waiter, I'm not a good chooser, so I pick that? Or do you appreciate your past experience that has helped you to define what the path of least resistance is for you? In other words, what makes you assume, and we're talking to all of you really, that you are bad at creating your own life experience? Don't you think your experience has been good for something, and don't you think you really know? Don't you prefer pleasant to unpleasant? And don't you prefer happy to unhappy?
Yeah.
And don't you prefer someone interested in you to someone not interested in you? So think about, let's talk about, Esther was watching television the other day and saw one of those matchmaking commercials. The words were, we find true compatibility. And the word compatibility just sort of, Esther could hear it. She could feel the word compatibility. And then we said to Esther, compatibility and law of attraction are the same words. Because when you feel compatibility with someone, that means that something that's active in your vibration, currently active in your vibration, is active in theirs. The thing is, a lot of you have a lot of compatibility with things you don't want, because they're active in your vibration. So you keep attracting people you don't want and then beating up on yourself when you realize, I don't really want this. You see what we're getting at?
Yeah.
So we want to put the word compatibility into a different way of looking at it. We want you to think about compatibility with your own path, compatibility with who you really are, compatibility with your core values, compatibility with who you really are and what you're really about. And until you figure that out, you can't begin to figure out what you're compatible with otherwise. You got to get that going first, you see. Now, there's lots of good news here, because in all of these relationships, you're figuring out who you really are and what you really want, aren't you?
Yeah.
And so rather than putting a desperate sort of timeline on it, why not just feel appreciation for the clarification, but put more emphasis on caring about the way you feel. Don't be so quick to look at someone and call them wrong and or look at yourself and call yourself wrong about feeling that somebody is wrong. In other words, we're trying to loosen things up a little bit to get you to all feel more inclined to give yourself permission to not like something. Path of least resistance means you like this better than that.
So how can you use the path of less resistance when it comes to you don't agree with the person, like how they feel, or letting go?
Well, it's a nice thing when you've sifted through a lot of this to realize you don't have to agree with anybody about anything, but you do have to agree with yourself about it. So if you're selfish enough to keep finding your agreement and finding your agreement and finding your agreement and finding your agreement, then you can stand with someone really not agreeing with you, and they don't threaten you, and you don't feel bothered by it, and you don't need them to change, and you don't need to change either. It's just more of the variety that makes the world go round. In other words, isn't life more interesting with more? You really don't want somebody to run around with you who just says, yes, I agree with that. Right? Yes, I agree with that. You're absolutely right about that. You think you do, but you don't. You're absolutely right about that. Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Yeah. That's exactly what I think. Because if you could be surrounded with that, you think you want that. But if you could be surrounded with that, pretty soon you'd all just be sitting around and looking at each other and saying, kill me now. I thought there would be, we can't talk about anything because there's no expansion here. There's too much agreement here. And therefore not launching any. So do you see how it's just this path of least resistance? Yeah. When you're bored, don't you want adventure? And when you've got too much adventure, don't you want it to slow down? And when you're hungry, don't you want to eat? And when you've been eating and eating, don't you want to stop? In other words, doesn't the path of least resistance change in relationship with where you are, in relationship with what you want? So what we want you to really feel is that you've been putting a lot into your vortex. There's a really clear relationship there for you. But you've got to become a match to it before anything can because, now hear this, you're going to like this. One who's in alignment with who they really are is more powerful than millions who are not. So if you stop trying to be compatible with all of them and you be compatible with who you are so that you're really in sync, you are this powerful, energy, clear-minded, good-feeling, happy girl. As that's who you are, then that vibration sends such a strong beam that anybody in your vicinity who matches that signal will be drawn right to you. And you'll know it when you see it. And meanwhile, isn't it fun to just keep working the kinks out of it? I thought you were right. I thought you were right for me, but it turns out, no. And it's not your fault, it's me. I'm not right for me. I'm not yet right for me, and you're evidence that I'm not yet right for me. You are the evidence. You are the evidence that I am not in alignment with who I really want, because I've got you and it don't feel good. You think we're kidding, but we're not kidding. Awesome. This is the way. In other words, line up, because these things are certain. You have put a clear, distinct, vivid relationship in your vortex that you keep resisting with all of your awareness of what's going on. So if you could just change one thing, as you're looking at what you don't want in someone, acknowledge what you do want. And as you see something else you don't want, acknowledge what you do want. So it's what I do want, 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 what I do want. And then before you know it, evidence of what you do want, what you do want, what you do want. Most people, relative to relationships, are looking for someone to fill that void between them and them. And you're never going to find that person, not ever, 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 because it's not their job. But once you discover it on your own, and you know so much more what you want about all things than you act like you know. And it's because you haven't been practicing that selfish determination to go toward what I know I want. You put up with too much. And you know what? You're not putting up with stuff from others. That's not what we mean. Others aren't mistreating you. You put up with too much from yourself about them. Use all those people as your excuse to throw stuff on your path. Resistant stuff on your path.
Can you tell my mom that?
Well, the reason you bring up your mother, and a lot of you do, is because it was in those very early years that you disregarded your own relationship with your own path and listened to someone else. So it's easy to blame those early characters in your life for your divergence from your path because you just weren't selfish enough to go your own way. They convinced you in your fallibility and in your inability. They convinced you that they knew better, and they never ever do, because they don't know who you are coming in. They don't have the vibration of who you are. They don't know what's on your path. They don't know, but they care about you, and so they do their best to guide you. And so they didn't do anything wrong. They followed their path of least resistance to the best of their ability. But what they did or did not do with their path is irrelevant to what you're doing with your path now. And now you know better.